This is Mathuleni Broadcasting Corporation. Inspired to inspire.
Zenzele Broadcasting Corporation, EMBC ngamafichane, igama lami nginguSimie Nkala. Namhlanje kuhlelo lethu sizobe sixoxisana no Mr. Zenzele Ndebele. Abaningi bayamazi kakhulu bamazi ngesite neminye imisebenzi eminingi ehlukeneyo. Namhlanje ke sizobe sikhuluma naye, sikhuluma ngaye, sidinga ukwazi ukuthi ungubani. Abaningi banemibono, banama ideas, ama perceptions and thoughts ahlukeneyo ngaye ukuthi who is this Zenzele and why is he doing what he is doing. Namhlanje sinaye ke e-studio, sizomnikeza just a moment ukuthi as introduce and then we proceed. Mr. Ndebele, please introduce yourself.
My name is Zenzele Ndebele. There's nothing much about me. I'm a journalist by profession. Yeah, that's what I do.
Right.
Please like and share.
This is Zenzele Ndebele. By profession, he is a journalist, as he just said. Right, Mr. Ndebele, we would like to know, sikwazi from your journalistic work, sikwazi sikubona lapho sikubona khona, but who is Zenzele Ndebele? Going back, sibuyela siqala phansi from you being a child, your childhood, and sithatha journey yakhona from there. Who is Zenzele Ndebele?
Well, I'll be very brief because for so many reasons, I usually don't talk a lot about my background. It's security as well. I don't want to give too much. That's why most of the times I don't post about my family. And I have made a decision that I'll keep them private. So yeah, in general, that's where I grew up. From there, and I studied media studies. My first degree was in media. My master's was in media. All my postgrads have been around the media and democracy, media and digital technologies. But in umfana nje ekhaya ngikhule ngiselusa lakathesi nje into zokufuya lezi. That's what I'm very passionate about. And yeah, I've not been different from any other Zimbabwean okhulele ekhaya. And having grown up a young boy in the early 80s, it means that I experienced or I witnessed some of the issues that have influenced my career. And I focused mainly on transitional justice, mainly because of the experiences and the stories that I've had growing up.
Right. Njengomfana okhule ekhaya, just like any other boy eselusa esenza into ezinjalo, which is also inspired you namhlanje siyabona uyafuya wenza into ezinjengalezo. What are some of the positive or negative experiences or wazithatha from your childhood ongashare namhlanje nabantu?
I think I would say the positives is always, now khule ekhaya, the community it inspires you a lot because I'm not sure whether it's still the same, but growing up ePlumtree, umntwana nje ube ngumntwana womuntu wonke. So usithi nxa uselusile nje inkomo zingene emasimini, umnikazi wamasimu kumbe umakhelwane mengakuchayela khona okwenza ukuthi inkomo zingene emasimini. Even zingangenanga emasimini, sometimes wawuchaywa ukuthi wadala babe sinqabe siyozihambela etshwaleni elithola libhukutsha kumbe lidlala ibhora bese lichayela ukuthi indaba lidlala inkomo zingaka. And I realized ukuthi sasingafika ekhaya futhi sikhuluma ukuthi sichaywe ngundlovu ngosibanda ngoba masalo wayengaliphinda futhi ukuthi vele lichayela ukuthi wayelichayela ukuthi lichayiwe. So it was, the role of the community to mold umntwana. And you realize that maybe sesikhulile, we realize sakhula labantu abantwana abanye ababengela bazali. And it was everyone's responsibility ukuthi bebone ukuthi bayadla bahambe esikolo. Even back then, for some reason, they were child-headed families. But they didn't, I don't remember us referring them to child-headed families. But in Iskaba, they used to meet, take turns, and all those kind of things. So those are the things that really, I think, shaped me, inspired me. Njengesigaba kunengi elingakwenza liyafundisana. Even going to boarding school will teach you survival skills, because form 1 uyabusumela ufunde ukuthi uyawatch igqoza uyazayinela, you wake up in the morning, uyendlula umbheda ume eceleni kwawo, and boarding master will come and inspect ukuthi uyendlule kuhle. Saturday would have inspection and all those kind of things. So it teaches you self-reliance. Even ngongana nje ukuthi liyavuka ekuseni livulela inkomo ngabo 10, selisiyelusa. I don't remember ngihambe enkomeni ngithwele umphako mina. So sasithi singakhoze wawungayenza ukuthi uvuke ekuseni siye emasimini unathi itiye udla isitshwala uselusa. So half the time wawunathi itiye then uhambe uza kuyosidla ntambama. But we never went hungry egangeni ngoba there were so many things to do. Lalikepa imbongolwane, lalitapha inyosi, ngesikhathi somswanja sasisenga imbuzi inkomo, and all those things. So there was always a way to survive. You always made a plan. So sometimes even ungelusanga you awulandela abanye abelusileyo uyedlala labo, because it was more fun ukuba segangeni than ukuba sekhaya, because wakwazi ekhaya suzamele ufuqa ibhara uye kukha amanzi bese kuzamele uyehlakula and all those kind of things. So life was simple, enjoyable, despite the fact that so many families had so many challenges. But parents always made sure that you are comfortable, ulaludlile, and yeah, I think that really inspired me a lot and shaped me into, now a grown-up person. I always refer back to the community and say, impilo ekhaya was much simpler and more fun.
Right. Impilo ekhaya was much simpler and more fun. Utsho njalo uNdebele. Njengomfana okhule eselusa odlule kukho konke lokho sukubalisile, what were your interests in terms of sport? Siyazi abafana ekhaya bayadlala imidlalo etshiyatshiyeneyo. So were there any sporting activities that you were involved in, even growing up, or boarding school and other places that you went through?
I've never been a sports person. I'm so much Tandi Bora or anything. I think even in Bora, I would support Islanders for political reasons more than anything else. So I can count the number of times Bora APF. It's not my thing. In Bora, I've really have limited interest in it. But I've always been, I think in high school, I was even Sunday school, I was so much involved in the drama. That's what I liked. So even in high school, one could yeah, sorry, there was some muting that happened there. So I was saying, yeah, so I've always preferred drama. So I was a drama person. I preferred reading books, mainly history and all those kind of things. And yeah, I'll be and I'll carry a book, and other people always found it funny because but I mean, I prefer to do than or something. So I would out of peer pressure. Because growing up, they would assuming. So I would have that privilege. And everyone would want to include you because it's but I'm sure they were just saying, So I was really never a soccer person. So on those occasions where yeah, I think I just did it because I had to. Even into the swimming, because everyone is doing it. But I just preferred to be on my own. This is why most of the times, Skuleka will be so many villages and sasihlanganisa inkomo. So I would prefer to go the opposite direction. Because I'll be at peace by myself. I'll read my books and no one really irritate me. And the inkomo zazingahluphi, so inkomo zazingasole zanezihamba kakhulu. So ngangikwazi ukuthi ngafika in an area where they prefer. And I had that interest ukuthi mina inkomo ngangazihambisi lapho engifuna khona. Ngangizilandela mina ngibona ukuthi zifuna ngaphi. And I knew ukuthi ngingazilandela zizafika lapho ezifuna khona. And then they won't trouble you because you have says konapo and usually so around 4 then later on I now then figured it out. Okay, so in Gomo they have a particular grass that they want, so you have to allow them to come. But there's abafana, you would normally drive in Gomo lapo elifuna kona because ziva so once bora and all those kind of things. But probably in Gomo and many people didn't prefer that. And so this is why I most of the time I preferred to be on my own. I had limited friends. I'm not that kind of person or I have friends, but I really don't like spending time with people.
Right. We are talking to Zenzele Ndebele. Namhlanje sikhuluma naye, sikhuluma ngaye. Abaningi benu bamazi through his journalistic work. And umuntu masimbona kujwayelekile ukuthi simbona lapho simbona khona and siba nendlela yokumbheka or eyokumthatha ngayo. Namhlanje sikhuluma naye ngaye njengomfana ekhule endaweni, njengomuntu ekhula kwi-community, ukuthi yena ungubani, wenza ziphi, uthanda ziphi. Unfortunately, of course, there are some things that we can't get into because of security reasons and many other things. I'm sure everybody knows the kind of work that Zenzele is involved in. Right. Uthe wena wawulidlala ibhola ngoba wawungumnikazi webhola, ngaphandle kwalokho nje ongeke ufike kulezo ndawo. Very, very interesting. Now let's talk about you a little bit. Njengomuntu okhulele emakhaya, ngingathi waba inspired ngempilo yasemakhaya, indlela ukufuya nezinto ezinjalo. We have seen you usiba involved entweni ezinjalo, ukuthi uyafuya, uba sendaweni ezisemakhaya, ukulima into ezinjengalezo. What can you say to an everyday person namhlanje, because people tend to say times have moved on, things have changed, and they look at your life yasemakhaya in a particular way. What can you say to anybody out there othi mayebheke the modern day life, abheke lempilo yasemakhaya cabanga ukuthi impilo yasemakhaya kusho ukuthi nje isemva kanjalo nje?
Well, I think people have probably preferences. Who think maybe Nkala town is the way that they live, they like and is the best. But sometimes it can be the best because that's the only life that you know. So you have not experienced anything else. So you have nothing to compare with. Okay, what are the options? But if you have, I think if you have gone Ekaya or if you've grown up Ekaya, you easily adjust to Nkala town. But sometimes now Nkala town, it's difficult for you at an older age to adjust to Nkala Kaya because most of the things as ever since we are. And of course, sometimes we need to ask ourselves why, even during colonialism or even after, leave it town. What is it that was pulling them to be on the plaza? So of course not everyone was emaplazini, but if you look at the things that people can do, there are so many. Some people prefer uhlala ekhaya, some people prefer uhlala town, but you ask yourself, where can you live much cheaper and probably generate a bit of income and be sustainable? Because a town, we buy everything. Ekhaya, I can spend a week without spending $1, So, but like I said, I'm options about that, and sometimes we are experience zako. So if you have been to Ekhaya, you've been to town, you've been to Europe, you've been all over the world, you then say, where do I prefer? You can make a choice because you've seen it all. But now you always think, now Ekhaya, we think the town is the best. Now the town go blah, you think because you always think the Canaan is the other side. But sometimes the nice place is what you make it yourself. Where you want to be depends on what you want to do.
Right. Let's say a young person approaches you and says, ukufuya nokwakha nje generally emakhaya or emaplazini. If ever there was an opportunity for our Ndabacha to access indawo ezifana namaplazi, farmland, would you encourage umuntu omutsha to take that opportunity?
If they are passionate about it, definitely they can. Ukufuya, it's passion. It's something that you really have to be passionate about. You don't do it because it's fashionable or you are going to make money out of it. Because if you're not passionate about it, who's our stressor? One thing that what I've realized and that I sometimes talk to Abanye, we always talk about the good that happens in farming, sporting and all the kind of things. But we never talk about how is Ndolezi sometimes. In a week, you can lose 5, 7. I think last year I lost about 25 for one bag or the other, negligence and all those kind of things. But hardly do we talk about the downside of those things. So you really need to be, it's like any other business. Someone said, the farming business is like a wheelbarrow, so you need to constantly push it. So whether they need a lot of attention, they need care. So you have to make sure they are warm and all those kind of things. Because 5, 6 just because of and all those kind of things. More frequently. So it's about passion. But if you are really passionate about it, I would encourage young people to, take up as a farming. But not everyone can be a farmer. I think that's what we need to emphasize. So it's not wonke umuntu sengaba ifama. Ukhona omunye umuntu ongaba setown enze ezinye izinto and progress. These days we live in the world of technology and there are so many ideas that young people can push online and yeah. It's now a global village. If you're online, you're not only targeting Ubulawayo, but you're targeting the more than 3 billion people who are online.
Right. When we see Umonde Zenzele Ndebele, usually we forget to they are as human as we are as well. We forget to we can learn everyday life. We can be inspired apart from the field from which we see them every day. So namhlanje sithe sixoxisane no Mr. Ndebele ngaye nje ngombono yakhe ngendlela abona ngakhona nokuthi yena ungubani. Right. Here you are as a journalist and you are doing what you are doing and we are seeing you. So many people have so many thoughts about it, so many feelings and all of that. Some of them even call you tribal. I've seen it on social media. Some people saying you are one-sided, some people saying this and that. Let's start from you being a journalist. You could have been anything really. You could have been a policeman, you could have been a doctor. What really drew you towards thinking and saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to study media and I'm going to be a journalist?
Well, I think, from my younger age, I always wanted to be a journalist. I don't know why, but as far as I can remember, That was always my wish. But also it was mainly growing up, abantu behlangene, imuli, they would have a conversation and they end up with a conversation of someone who's no longer with us. And the conversation in a family, we end up talking about Gukurahundi. So I grew up curious. Because and usually also when I was so people didn't want to have a conversation about this thing. So when growing up, it was more like a little secret that when you mentioned the word Gukurahundi, everyone would look at you and say that so that's where my curiosity started. And I said, probably if I study journalism or history, I'll be able to figure it out. And try and find out what happened and when. And yeah, after finishing my first degree and working, that's what I did. I just wanted to find out what happened.
Right. A lot of people in Matabele land, whichever part of Matabele land and Meek lands, were affected by what is termed Gukurahundi. And some people were not affected directly. Some people were affected directly. Some people were not even born yet at the time. And when you are born, you find that there's those stories that you are referring to right now, that whenever a family gathers or whenever a group of people comes together, there's always those stories that will lead to a story that says, because of this. Unfortunately, it has always been that type of little secret whereby there's this touching on it, but there's no going deep into it. When you try to go deep into it, then there's problems. Eating spotlight and ask you a direct question. Were you or are you directly affected by the Gukurahundi genocide?
I will not answer that question today. When the time is right, I'll talk about it. But I believe it doesn't matter whether I was directly affected or not, because it's something that happened and it affected my neighbor, it affected the cousin. We are the same people together, so it affected me and everyone. And it has affected me in so many ways, because if we talk about marginalization, we are talking about the effects of Gukurahundi. If we are talking about so many people, in the south and north, Abase, South Africa, who migrated in the 80s, it's the effects of Gukurahundi, so it affected me. If I'm talking about the generation of people who don't have birth certificates, because it affected me. If we are talking about the number of people who could not claim pension, abazali babo, properties, abazali babo, and so many investments abazali babo as a bank, as a person or land, that wealth would have benefited me. I'll be having more listeners aside, we'll be having more customers aside. So there is no way I think we would say Gukurahundi did not affect us when we live in Matabele.
Right. There are those who say it affected everybody. And they say there's a tendency of a tribal reporting when it comes to the issue of Gukurahundi, as if it only affected the Ndebele people. I recently saw a comment somewhere on social media whereby somebody was insinuating that Zenzele Ndebele is just one-sided, he is tribal, he wants to make this thing a Matabeleland issue, that kind of thing. What would you say to somebody who has that kind of view about this work, about you, about Gukurahundi?
Well, it is Wula's name, so I will not really bother myself sometimes with everyone who says everything, because you need to ask. And you sometimes ask the motive, but it is a fact that Gukurahundi was tribal. And we need to be very clear about that. The fact that Gukurahundi was not Shona versus Ndebele. It was not like in Rwanda. So it's not like the Shonas went and killed the Ndebele. When I say the Shonas, I mean the whole tribe. No, it didn't happen that way. But the Shona-led government decided to train a 5th Brigade, which was to a larger extent, probably 95% Shona-speaking soldiers. And we know ukuthi people were killed for not being able to speak Shona. If you have interacted with the content that we do, we have had so many people who say, I survived because I spoke in Shona. Shona became the language of survivor. If you go to articles that some of them have been sharing on social media, about 83, 82, you can tell that every journalist was talking about tribal tensions between the Shona and the Ndebele. And they emphasize that Nkomo, who is largely supported in Matebeleland. The 1980 results will show you how tribal the politics was, which has not changed even up to now. Zimbabwean politics is very tribal. WhatsApp groups in Zimbabwe are very tribal. Twitter in Zimbabwe is very tribal. That's why you will find someone who says Zenzele is tribal. So it takes a tribalist to identify someone as a tribalist, because maybe they'll be seeing, so it only takes a tribalist to identify someone as a tribalist. And in any way, if you are in a position of being a minority, and if you're in a position of being underprivileged, there is no way Ndebele will be a tribalist as much as there is no way Black will be racist. I think people need to get that very clear. However, name calling has always been part of the Zimbabwean politics. So it's easy to dismiss someone, Luana is a tribalist, because you don't want to concentrate on the content of what the person is saying. And we can spend the whole day providing evidence why Gukurahundi was tribal. And some sort of people were killed for being in Matebeleland. Isn't it tribal? So many people, I know of a story of a woman somewhere, and I'm also Africa I'm married to my husband here, what to say town. Bahamba lying a motor, Batata indota yake, Ndebele, Kobulawayo. Baibulala. And took the woman with them. And no one knows what happened to that woman. But so how would, it is quite stupid for people to actually say Gukurahundi was not tribal. We are just trying to justify something that is, I don't know why people become so uncomfortable talking about effect. If people read, there's a book by Stuart Doran. This book is called The Kingdom, Power, Glory. I think it's on page 454, where Stuart Doran talks about a meeting when he uses the Australian declassified information, and he talks about Zobo telling Umsika, the ZANU-PF Central Committee sat down, I think it was around December 1981 or 82, and said, let's massacre the Ndebeles. The Central Committee ZANU made a resolution to massacre the Ndebeles. Wasn't it that tribal? And when we are saying it was tribal, doesn't mean that there were no Ndebeles within ZANU. Who knows Nkala was Ndebele? Later on, Ukalistas joined. We know that one or two commanders of the 5th Brigade who were Ndebele. I know about 2 or 3 names of guys who but it doesn't make it less tribal because the agenda was tribal, and the agenda was to eliminate Ndebele. Simple. So if we talk about, I've heard people talking about, no, there was a problem of dissidents. There were dissidents in Maswingo, where was the 5th Brigade deployed. There were dissidents in Mwenez. Was the 5th Brigade deployed? There were no dissidents in Bulawayo, but the 5th Brigade was deployed in Bulawayo. Door to door, but how many people would have said, dissident go Bulawayo? So, and if you want to see that it was, then there were few Ndebele people who were protected by the fact that Nkala was in ZANU. So Gukurahundi was never deployed in Filabusi. So Emma Eri and Nkala, Abantu survived because Nkala was in ZANU, so it was not deployed that way. You see, so if people, the problem is that people want to address the issue in 2001 or to 2021 without going to 1982 and reading the facts of how this thing happened. If people should learn to read first, understand, go to parliament, look for answers. The information is there. So there's a vast, huge information that is there about the issue of Gukurahundi and how tribal it was, and how the 50th Brigade was deployed, and how some of the Ndebeles who were in the 50th Brigade were actually not deployed and were left. I think at one point actually talked to one guy who was in the 50th Brigade and was never deployed, and when he was on leave, he was actually picked by some of his comrades and was served by the police at Pumula when they actually wanted to kill him. And we know of this, the army, the Ndebele guys of Zipra who were being killed in the army. How many Shona Zipras, because Zipra was Shona in Ndebele, how many Shona Zipras were killed about the National Army? If anything, they were going up the ladder, you see. And let's not forget that while the bigger target was ZAPU and the imposition of one-party state, the way the government dealt with ZAPU supporters in Mashonaland is different from the way they dealt with ZAPU supporters in Matebele. They didn't commit a genocide in Mashonaland, but they beat the supporters. They harassed them and told them to stop supporting ZAPU, but they didn't kill them. Of course, one or two would have been killed in the process, because sometimes when someone killed, so there were people who killed. But there was no genocide in Mashonaland amongst the ZANU supporters. Tungamirai fired at the spot about 250 Zipra guys who parade. All ZAPU Zipra guys, go and get your trunks. But Tatama trunks out. What, you are fired? Why were they fired? They fired simply because they were in Ndebele. You were a dissident just because you were in Ndebele. If people remember a program, pick a box, there was a presenter who asked, Chichinos in Ndebele. I mean, Chichinos is dissident. And the woman answered that with dissident in Ndebele. So if someone doesn't believe that it was tribal, then they need prayers.
Right. Sixoxisana no Zenzele namhlanje owe-site abaningi bamazi kakhulu site and through his journalistic work. Right. As a young boy, you said you were always curious. There was this topic, this subject that was touched, but never really delved into. Because if you mentioned it, everyone went mute. No one wanted to talk about it. And then you were curious to say, okay, what is this? What happened? And what is the information? What is the truth behind everything? Now you are here. You have done so much work. We've watched content your site, some of it very emotional, some of it very heartbreaking, and all that. Looking at the work that you have done today, the content that you've had to go through, and the people that you have sat down and had a conversation with, the curiosity that you had as a young man, and the facts that you have stumbled upon now through the work that you are doing, what would you say to somebody who asked you a question, saying, why are you continuing with this kind of work?
I'll ask them, why should I not continue? I mean, because there is no rule that we say we shouldn't do this kind of work. But people understand that peace building is an ongoing process. Zimbabwe is raising very angry people. And you find that the younger generation might be even more angrier than the first generation of people and the real victims of Gukurahundi. And it is a problem. In every environment that you go, whether it's a WhatsApp group, whether it's a church group, whether it's a soccer match, a day doesn't end without people, insulting each other, just because you belong to a different tribe. And that shows that we have a problem. Election time, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of accusations and counter accusations. So we are a divided nation. And for Zimbabwe to actually, there's some people who don't even identify themselves as Zimbabweans because of what happened. This is why there are people who are calling for secession, because they feel like they're not part of Zimbabwe. So I don't think there is anyone who wants an injustice, yet we believe that we are democratic. So Gukurahundi is an issue that has not been resolved. It is an issue that is affecting a lot of young people It is an issue that is affecting the well-being of a country, and therefore it is an issue that needs to be addressed.
The well-being of the country is being affected by this thing, yet we are trying as much as we can to avoid this subject, or just term it tribal, so that it just loses weight and it goes out of the window. Sixoxisana namhlanje no Zenzele Ndebele, the person, his passion, what is driving him, ungubani yena, wenza ziphi. Abantu abaningi mabebona umuntu enza umsebenzi othile, they just get curious ukuthi kanti vele yena ngubani, what is driving him, lokhu akwenzayo ukwenzelani. Right, Mr. Zenzele, looking at eSite, what is the future of CITE? We see it today, we've seen it yesterday. From your viewpoint, what is the future of CITE?
Well, eSite is a media house that would always evolve depending on the trends that are in society. So we have one objective: to tell the story of our people. And we tell the story of our people via videos that we produce, via the stories that we write, via the workshops that we do, empowering young people to be able to use the new tools of the trade, by giving an opportunity to artists to collaborate with us, perform, all those kind of things. And CITE will always evolve in one form or the other, but it will remain as an organization whose aim is to tell the story of the people of Matabeleland.
Right. Telling the story of the people of Matabeleland usually attracts some type of forces that come with danger along the way. As CITE, as you, the person Zenzele Ndebele, as you continue to try and find facts, the truth behind the story of the people of Matabeleland, and you're afraid of the dangers, the dangerous forces that seek to block this?
Well, there is no one who can say they are not afraid working in Zimbabwe because of the things that have happened before in the environment that they work in. But I think some of these things, you just wake up and take a day as it comes, because I might sit and be afraid and do nothing, and Western Skati, some things have to be done. And you have to do them either way, you navigate your way through the storm. So yeah, that's how we take it.
Right, you navigate your way through the storm, because even if you don't do it, it still needs to be done. Ibingu Zenzele Ndebele CITE namhlanje sixoxisana naye sibheke impilo yakhe njengomfana omncane ekhula ukuthi yena ubebheke ziphi izinto, yini yakhe curiosity emenze emgqugquzela ukuthi namhlanje abe ngulo esimbona esenza umsebenzi awenzayo. As CITE, does somebody apply to join in, or how do you recruit the people, the journalists that you have as CITE?
No, a CITE, like any other media organization or any company, if there is a vacancy, we advertise, and people apply, and we do interviews, and we pick the best.
Right. Because of our time, namhlanje sizoyigoqalana besixoxisana nomnumzana uZenzele Ndebele, esimazi kakhulu noma ngithi abantu abamazi kakhulu ngomsebenzi wakhe awenzayo as eSite. Ngokuvala, iwapha amagama ongabunawo Mr. Ndebele ongafuna ukuthi uvale ngawo namhlanje?
Well, I don't have much to say except reading it. I think we would like to thank everyone who is supporting us in so many ways. By CITE is exists because of the people that are around it, who consume the information and who also give us the information. Because I think just like the guerrillas would say from the Chinese proverbs, we are the fish, the people are the water, and without the water, which is the audience, we cannot survive. So we get our stories from the audience. It is interesting that our stories come from every political party. When I say every, I mean every political party in Zimbabwe. So we are friends of everyone. So even sometimes the people that you see, saying all the things on Twitter, we are inbox, comrade, here is the story. So we are very happy that people have given us support. People follow us on our social media. They listen and watch the content that we do. They advise us. So we get a lot of advice from people. And growing up, Ekaya, I will always listen to what Abatala said. And there are people who are more knowledgeable than us. And they will tell us, why don't you do this way? And we are very grateful to the wisdom that we are getting from the older generation, the younger generation, people from all spheres of life. And keep supporting us, and we won't disappoint.
Right, they won't disappoint. Usho kanjalo Mr. Zenzele Ndebele. Bekuhlelo lwethu namhlanje kwiMathebelelen Broadcasting Corporation, MBC ngamafitshane, sixoxisana naye. Siyabonga kakhulu isikhathi sakho Mr. Ndebele ukuthi usinikeze sona. Siyazi ngumuntu ohleli ematasa. Siyabonga kakhulu, asiphinde silangane njalo ngokuzayo. BekunguSimie Nkala ohlelweni lwenu The Big Conversations ku-MBC. Siyabonga.
Please like and share.